Welcome at the moment. We've got Gavin, Mira, and Navmeet who've joined us. We're expecting about 10 participants. I hope that everybody will be able to come and join us. But if not, all these webinars are recorded and we do share them with all our schools. And you know, the benefits of these webinars is to bring in our associate members who can contribute a lot to us as a federation. And today we've got one of our great supporters, Finalsite, who assists us in so many ways, particularly with our website and making that as functional as possible. So we really enjoy a great relationship with Finalsite. And we have Debbie here representing Finalsite with this webinar. And the topic is school communication, planning and delivery in uncertain times. And that is so true, you know, with what we're all experiencing at the moment. And of course, the focus will be on how to build a communications calendar that coordinates content across your website, social media, and email, even during these uncertain times. So I think this is a great topic, and I'm really grateful, Debbie, to you and to Finalsite for sharing this with us. And I wish you a great webinar. I'm unfortunate I can't sit in for all of it.
We'll send you the recording. We are recording it, like you said, so we'll give you a test next week on the content.
Okay, that's good. I look forward to it. So thanks to Lee May as well at HQ. She was so busy last week with our sports conference.
That's awesome. It's great that you guys are doing such wonderful things.
So thank you, Lee May. So I hand over to you, Debbie. And
great, thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you. So let's get these slides going. Hi, everybody. Like he said, I'm Debbie Eisenach. I'm the International Marketing Manager here at Finalsite. I actually lived in Singapore when I started with Finalsite. Oh, hello. I hear somebody talking. So anyway, hold on, sorry, I just muted someone. I'm very familiar with Southeast Asia and I really miss it. I now live in Germany where it's snowing. And I also am a mother of 3 children who did the IB. So I'm very familiar with schools and IB, and in my free time when we could travel, I like to travel, play sports and hang out with my friends. Thank you again for having us today. It's our pleasure. Our agenda he talked about briefly is talking about communication plan must-haves, how to build a calendar, social media and email cadence, and coordinating communications across your teams. There are some pretty in-depth slides here. We will send you the slides as well as the recording so that you can share this with your team and hopefully it's useful as you go forward. I think I skipped a slide. Okay, so we work with schools around the world, and we know that schools have faced so many challenges in the past year. And some schools we know had a basic crisis plan, while others were left floundering and trial by fire for many. And we know that school marketers have been the superheroes. We know all of you have been superheroes working around the clock to make sure you hit the next day running. And during this past year, we've worked with schools around the world and we've learned a lot. So hopefully we can share some of that with you. And to start off, let's look at this slide. What do communications look like? And when you look at this slide, are you stressed out? Are you invigorated? Are you tired? Does your head want to explode? Or do you think you have it all together? And if so, then maybe you don't want to sit in on this webinar. But these are a lot of the words we've heard from school marketers around the world. Reopening plans, two-way channels, video, virtual, what should we be doing? So the question is, what do we do about uncertain times? We plan for what we can, we prepare for what we cannot, and we have open lines of two-way communication. So the idea is that we can plan what we think will happen or what normally happens. And we can prepare for things that we're not sure if they're going to happen. Are we having an in-person graduation? Are we having a sports day? So you have to have different scenarios planned out. And we know from last year that most schools had 3 options planned out. They had open, hybrid, and remote. And I think that's all not news to any of you. And even here in Germany, the schools were opened for a long, long time, and now they're closed again. So, the other very important thing is that you keep your lines of communication open. So you want to build your communication plan around what you are certain about, but always leave room for the unexpected. And that's where I think people probably weren't as well prepared as they could be. And now here we are starting out 2021, and we've learned a lot from the past year. So hopefully all of you can get your plans in order and keep moving forward.
Can I just interrupt you for a minute, Debbie?
Yeah.
We're not seeing anything on the screen, so I'm not sure
Oh,
that is. So
you don't see my screen.
no, we don't. So
That's weird. Sorry. Well, I'm glad you told me that. Hold on one second.
is there a reason for that? You're hosting this on your Zoom, aren't you?
You see
there
it
we
now?
are. We can see it now. Good.
Oh, well,
Great.
that's a bummer.
Right. Okay.
Okay, we'll
So
do a quick high level. This is me.
Brilliant.
And then we talked about the agenda. And then we talked about communicate. This was the slide that I said, what do people think of when they see this? Are you stressed out? Do you feel like you have it all under control? Then, you need to plan, prepare, and have open lines of communication. You're seeing my slides, right?
Yeah, we can see them now. Brilliant.
Okay, sorry. So we talked about nothing is certain, but we need to be, I think this is where we left off. Yes, exactly. Nothing is certain, but we can be consistent, we can be transparent, and we can create trust. And so by being consistent and transparent, you build trust with your community. And we have heard from so many schools that this has been the key to their success last year, is that by keeping their parents, students, and staff informed and doing the best they possibly can, which is not always perfect, they build trust with their community. Their trust in their newsletter, in their portal, and this is the goal, is to help let your community know that you're there to support them and that they have trust in what you're doing and that you're doing the best thing for your community. Here is just an example of a portal that we found most schools put up that is a centralized place for all of their communication. So now we're going to get more into the details, and we're going to talk about communications, cake, and the food network, and what in the world do all of those have in common. And first we'll talk about a TV network, the food network we're using in this example. Networks set the tone for good communication. When you turn on the network, you know what you're getting. If you're looking for a cooking show, you're going to see cooking, you're not going to see sports. And the one thing about TV networks is that they provide certainty. It's tailored for an audience. The same can be true for your various communication channels. Your visitors know what to expect when they get a newsletter, when they go to your portal, when they go to social media. So we're trying to keep that same predictable, consistent, and communication needs to be tailored to your audience. I know my own kids have been at schools and the communication hasn't always been great. One week you get a newsletter, the next week you don't. Again, it's just not consistent and it's not a great user experience for the parents. So then we talk about cakes, and what does this have to do with anything? And it's having, cakes have different layers and you can use different ingredients and processes, but you always end up with something delicious. So it's kind of fun. This is kind of the fun part in communications. You can figure out how you want to structure things, how many layers, how are you going to decorate things? But again, you always have to leave room for the unexpected. If you run out of eggs or if you don't have the right sprinkles for your cake. And it's not always a bad thing if you have unexpected things. My mother was a school teacher, and one of her cakes for me, she put together with toothpicks because it fell apart. And I was about 10, and to this day, it's still probably one of my most memorable birthday cakes. Even though it wasn't perfect, it was still made with love and unforgettable. So when you're looking at your communication plans, you want to look at the what, the who, the where, and the when. And if we start with your standard communications plan, most schools have standard communication plans that include updates, special events, their magazine, newsletters. And on top of that, most schools have a contingency plan for things like weather, if there's head lice. And what we learned during COVID is that most schools did not have a pandemic plan, but they found comfort in this middle layer of contingency planning, and that guided them during this whole COVID, and it still guides them today. And then the last layer of your communication planning should be your crisis communication planning. If there's a scandal, if there's a death. We're not going to talk about that today, but if you need more information on that, you can certainly email me and I can share some resources with you. So I think most schools are very good at the standard. The crisis, again, is something different, but this in-between stage is what we're really focusing on today. And contingency communications for uncertain times. So the best way to stay ahead of anything is to have a plan. And we found, like I said, that most schools during COVID had the opened, closed, or hybrid. And many of them are moving in and out of those different phases. And the idea is that you want to have a set of protocols for all those scenarios. So if you have to send out an email, it's ready to go. If you have Facebook posts, it's ready to go. Have them ready, outline all the possibilities, and have the text and the delivery mechanisms ready so that you can move forward the next day when that communication needs to go out. In looking back at it's probably worth looking back at last year and evaluating, seeing where you could do better moving forward this year. We also know that many schools ran updates or do run updates by their faculty the day before they send the communication out to their parents. And they found that this is a great way to keep the faculty engaged and making sure they're up to date so that the next day when the parents get the communications, the faculty is not, doesn't know what's going on. So when you're planning, so now we're going to talk about planning your communications. And like the Food Network, it's predictable. So we want to have different layers. And we have broken this down. We see that many schools break down their communications into 3 different categories. Scheduled programming, like your newsletter, your social media posts. Special events would be like graduation, sports day, and tentpole events are reoccurring signature events. Many of you, this may be a new word to you, but we have seen many schools adding tentpole events during COVID. They're not as often as scheduled programming, but they're more often than special events. So this might be a monthly principal talk, a guidance counselor talk, a weekly heads talk, something where you can really build buzz around it. And you can also use that content later and share it chunk it down, write a blog about it and share it. So when we look at the standard, so I don't know how many of you have a standard editorial calendar, but this is a sample one that we've shared with schools around the world. And you'll see that the tentpole events are those big chunky events that are going to be, say, once a month, you have a director Q&A. And in the world of Zoom, it's a great way to get your community engaged. We've actually seen many schools have better engagement with everything being remote versus when they were in person. We talked with United World College. They did their back to school night and they had much bigger engagement over Zoom. And they plan to do that in the future, COVID free or not. And so you have your tentpole events, and then you have your special events, then you have your regular programming and your themes. And okay, I'm going to flip to the next slide so you can see the whole thing. So this is an example of an editorial calendar. We actually like, schools find that's a useful way to group topics together and have a theme. So it's another way to look at things. Now, for some schools that are bigger and have more resources, you might want to think about also adding in your admissions and your advancement content. Hold on one second. So once we have our content mapped out for the year, which you could do today, we then look at who do we want to reach. We want to reach students, parents, faculty, and alumni. Whoops. And one thing we know is that email isn't the only way to reach families. In evaluating 500 million emails that were sent by Finalsite schools, there was only a 49% open rate across all emails. So you have to realize you're missing half of your audience if you're only sending communications via email. So where can we communicate? There are one-way channels and there are two-way channels. And the one-way channels are your website, community portals, mobile apps, social media, direct mail. And two-way channels are very important today because parents have a lot of questions. So social media, virtual meetings and chats, forms and surveys are all great ways to have two-way communication. We showed here a social media post, and I know we all often get that, like, what should we do with social media when parents are asking really difficult questions or saying negative things about our school? And, you know, it's difficult, but it's a way you can manage the conversation. So we do encourage you to be active in your social media channels. The other thing is that you can have, we recommend that you open up Facebook groups if you don't already, because they're private and not everybody will see what's going on, especially if you have prospective families reading those. It's not necessarily the best for them to see the parents complaining. I know my children are in university in the States and I'm on the parent pages, and wow, parents are tough. They really can be difficult. So again, it's great to get out there and in front of it and answer and be transparent. And that's the one thing we talked about earlier, is being transparent and building trust. So I think I like this slide. And who do we need to reach, how and where? So we know students are often on Instagram, TikTok, possibly your portal, your website. Parents still do love email. They love having a portal. Faculty email portal. So again, this is just giving you ideas of, you know all the content you want to create. Now you have to figure out how you're going to deliver that content and where you're going to deliver it to your constituents. Then we have to talk about how often do we want to communicate? Social media, we recommend 1 to 2 times per week on Facebook, 1 to 2 times, per day on Instagram, 5 times per day on Twitter, 3 times on LinkedIn. Email twice a week, but leave room for some contingency plans or urgent communications. And your portal should be updated at all times. Special events, social media, these are examples. 3 times a week for Facebook, email 1 week for 3 weeks leading up to it. Again, I'll send you these slides so you can look at them. And then these tentpole events, you would want to communicate once per week, 2 weeks in advance on Facebook, include it in your weekly Friday newsletter, put it on your portal. Again, create a lot of buzz around these. So combining all your ingredients so now that we know what we want to communicate, who we want to communicate it with, how do you put this all together into a plan? What, who, where, and how often? So this is an example for community updates. What do we need to share? Who needs to see it? Where will we communicate it, and how often? So for each different update, you need to figure this out. Special events, same thing. COVID updates, what do we need to share? Who needs to see it? One thing we have seen is that most schools are creating a COVID hub, and often on their public portal so that it's very easy to access and parents quickly know where to go, teachers know where to go. Instead of sending, and if you send an email update every day and someone misses an email, they won't know what's going on at the school because things are changing so quickly. So again, we really think it's important that you maybe parents know that if they, for the latest information, please go to the COVID Hub. Well, here's just an example from Jakarta Intercultural School, their COVID Hub. It's worth looking at. If anyone would like to see any additional COVID hubs that we've seen, you could send me an email. We also on Finalsite's website, we have a portal full of different resources for how schools have communicated during COVID. Social media is a big mix component of every communication plan. So again, mapping that out is a great way to keep organized. And this is just one example for your weekly Instagram, Facebook updates. Oh, my slide is missing its title. So this is an example of your weekly email. And what we talked about is sending emails twice a week. So in the red, we have something, your predictable content. We know that on Monday and Friday, we're going to send out our newsletters. And in the middle, we have reserved for things that pop up or for special events or those tentpole events. So you don't want to hit your parents every day with an email, but rather be predictable so that they know on Friday when they get home from work, they can read the weekly newsletter. Monday morning, they get up, they get their distance learning plan for the week for their kids, so everybody knows what's going on. Again, just being consistent will help everybody in your community. One thing we know is that we work with a lot of schools that are a one-man show in marketing and communications, and we do recommend that you crowdsource your communications. So you can have some of your faculty or students helping with social media content. You can have another great thing is blogging. And I know we blog as well, and I know it takes a long time to write a blog article. But again, you can have your faculty blogging. You can have a parent write something about the school. And this is all great for your communication. It keeps people engaged. And it's very authentic. So my little quote here, less perfection, more authenticity. And I think that's what we're seeing in communications is that everything doesn't have to be perfect and it doesn't all have to come from just the school's point of view. It's getting your community engaged is where things are going, and it really helps, again, with authenticity sells better than perfection. I was looking at some websites and I did find that the British School in Tokyo has it written right out on their website. This is how we communicate. I thought it was fabulous. The Lion comes out weekly, social media is daily. So why not tell your community? I've actually never seen this on a website, and I thought it was fabulous that they're just very transparent about it. And parents, if they have a question, here's where we communicate. Let's see. So how do you build your plan and layer it? I don't know how many of you are using online planning tools, whether you use Google Sheets, whether you use Asana, Trello, or Teamwork. At Finalsite, we adopted Asana last year. They do have a free version. I think we have a paid version, but in any event, it's a great way to create projects with tasks and assign those tasks out. So you can see here that they're assigned out to different people. They have different due dates. You can categorize them. So if we go looking at these tentpole events, we can have a template for a tentpole event that says, when we do a tentpole event, we're always going to do these 5 tasks and these 20 subtasks. So then we can just copy that when we have a new one. So we have our director talk on Monday, and then we're going to, on Tuesdays, we're going to do these principal talks. It's the same steps. And so we just copy it, rename things, and assign those tasks out. So we can look at this every day you can log in, you could see what tasks are assigned to you. As the manager, you could see where things are in the process of being completed. You can look at a calendar. So here we have a calendar where we can see that we're posting on social media in orange, we're doing emails in green, and we're doing tentpole events in purple. So you log on every day and you could see exactly what's going on. And you see what things are, what's coming up. And if you can easily, if you want to move this email, because no, I don't want to move an email. If you did want to move something, you can move it and you could just drag and drop it to another day. Not that we're saying you should change things up, but it's, again, I think it's a great tool for organizing and keeping your team. And it's also a great way to show your head of school is all the activities you're doing. And then at the end of the year, you can go back and say, oh, wow, we did, 600 social media posts. We sent out 47 newsletters. So it's a great reporting tool.